one of my favorite bands and singers out there, Tobias Sammet, obviously from Edguy and Avantasia. Avantasia has an album coming out next month in February. And there's a new song called Against the Wind. Now, the first single, Creepshow, very typical of one of his singles. Against the Wind is a pretty typical power metal song. Now, the one thing about Avantasia and, Toby's songwriting is that he can take that old school epic power metal sound and still make it sound great. And when you listen to stuff that he writes with Avantasia, it never gets old. It never gets boring. Like when I listen to this song Against the Wind, it is like one of the most perfect power metal songs I've ever heard. It's got the epic feel to it. It's got a lot of trademark elements to it. That is just a trademark of Tobias Sammet. I probably think the song sounds a little bit more like an Edguy song than Avantasia, but it's still very, very good. Catchy chorus, kind of a more upbeat track, but it's really not much different than what you would expect from Avantasia or expect from Tobias Sammet. And to be honest with you, I know it sounds like I'm saying it's just like everything else he's done, but the thing is, everything else he's done has been great. So I'm listening to these two songs. When he had the last Avantasia album come out, mostly the singles, again, were pretty much what you would expect. And they're very straightforward, straight to the point. Anytime that they release a lyric video or a single, when I listen to the album is so much better than the singles they put out. But I understand why they put these songs out as singles. What do you expect from Avantasia? You expect epic power metal, right? Against the Wind is a classic sounding epic power metal song. It really is. Creepshow sounds a lot like the style of a very straightforward song, not very long. And those tend to always be the singles for Avantasia. Seriously. So I'm excited for Here Be Dragons. You don't get a lot of really awesome classic power metal being played the way it should be played and played well. It just doesn't happen. Avantasia, obviously a new album coming out. Halloween's going to have an album coming out. The new Labyrinth album, I think, is good. So there's a lot of great power metal that's going to come out this year. We already have the new Gravedigger album that just came out. Brainstorm's got an album coming out next month. So just so much cool stuff coming out. But Avantasia, everybody always talks about why doesn't he do an Edguy? Why doesn't he do an Edguy album? I always hear this constantly on social media. Like, why isn't he doing this? To be honest with you, Edguy sort of evolved into what Avantasia is now. Much like I always say, Sabotage pretty much evolved into Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And that's kind of what happened with Edguy. The last Edguy album, Space Police, was great. Actually, I would probably consider it one of the top 5 albums they've ever put out. But you have 2 projects with overlapping material. I've always said it's always best to concentrate on one band, one project. Like I mentioned Brainstorm earlier, right? When Simforce broke up and Andy Frank just started focusing completely on Brainstorm, if you go and listen to the album that they put out, I don't remember which record it is, but if you listen to the music they've been putting out ever since Simforce broke up, it's 10 times better than most of the stuff they had ever put out. And that's because you are putting your energy into one project. I think one of the things, too, that happens in the metal scene especially is, back in the old days, you had one band and that's all you did. You concentrated completely on that one band. But now, because money is spread thin in the music scene, people are in like 20 projects, 10 projects, 5 projects, always doing guest appearances. what I like about Avantasia is Toby is pretty much strictly doing just that. And I think that is where you see the strength in the songwriting, in the production, and why these Avantasia albums are as good as they are. Personally, what Toby has done with Avantasia since, 10, 11, 12 years ago is much better than the early stuff. And the reason being is he's concentrating on one project. They have a lot of tour dates booked. I saw you can go to their Facebook page for that. But the new song is great. It's old school, classic power metal, done the right way. Really not anything unexpected on it. But typically when you listen to some of the other kind of cool elements that he will add into his music, that usually happens when the album comes out. You'll discover a lot of cool stuff. The singles are pretty straightforward and pretty cut and dry. Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching, and if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video, and if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.